Hey everybody, it is Producer Jay, and a few weeks ago I did a video on the 13, this is already going great, on the 13 top 9mm PCCs. Now my qualification for that was they had to be new production or factory production and 9mm. That is to say 9mm Luger or 9mm Parabellum. Today, I'm taking a look at some guns that are not necessarily factory built, or are replicas, or, in the case of this big boy here, are not necessarily 9mm. This is sort of an honorable mentions list. There are definitely a lot more guns in 45, in 40, etc., that I could be talking about, but I don't have those. So I'm talking about the ones that I at least have access to, which are this lot here. So I'm going to go ahead and rank them in the order of my favorite, and I'm going to go ahead and give you a spoiler warning right now that this guy is not going to be number one. So starting at number 6, we have a gun that I showed actually in the original top 13 list. This is a 9mm, but they've been out of production for a while. I think another company is working on doing a modern, we won't call it reproduction, but a modern design. The reason that this is starting at the bottom of the list for me is I think even when the Tech 9, it was new, it wasn't particularly reliable. At least it didn't have a reputation for being especially reliable. I wasn't around at that time, so this is just what I've heard. But basically, these had the reputation of being the scourge of the 80s, which led to some changes as a result of bans. So this one is actually a post-ban model, the AB10, and it doesn't have the threaded barrel. It doesn't have the screw-on extension and shroud that the original Tech 9s came in with. So this gun, I spent less than $300 to buy, and then had to drop another, I would say, $200 in parts and magazines just to get it to run. So basically what I did was replace the extractor, and then I purchased some magazines that were listed in like new condition for about 50 bucks a piece, and bought 3 of those, and just expensive basically just to even get it to where it would function without jamming. Now it seems to be pretty much 100% now. We'll see how long that lasts. I can't but wonder if some of their current reputation is due to the fact that, you know, these guns are starting to wear out and parts are not extremely easy to get. So but again, I've heard that even back in the day, the reputation wasn't especially good on them. Misha has joked that I probably have the only functioning Tech 9 in the country. Again, that's a joke. You probably have one that works just fine, I bet. But yeah, this one took some work to get. These the sights you can see in the front sight is just like this bent over piece of metal, not completely non-adjustable either in the rear or the front. So it is what it is, and you can see how dummy thick these things are. They're just crazy. So not especially a precise gun. The trigger is actually okay as far as pull, but it is, you can see it's a very square trigger. Also seems very cheap, and it's got kind of some sharp edges and stuff. So it's just with a weird, you know, kind of long pull. So just kind of I have this definitely for the curiosity of it, and because, you know, people generally have heard of a Tech 9 even if they don't necessarily own one. So as a PCC collector, this seemed like this was one to get. So weird, you know, this kind of conventional or weird style mag release and all that stuff, but it is what it is for sure. But definitely not a top 10 gun, and I honestly would never suggest actually purchasing one unless you're like me and feel like you need to have one in your collection for some reason. So maybe you hit your head or ate paint chips as a kid, like me. Coming in at number 5 is the Auto-Ordnance, now currently owned by Car Arms, Thompson. This is a replica reproduction of the original Thompson submachine gun, but in semi-auto carbine form. From what I understand, that there are some other pretty strong mechanical differences on these that I'm really not equipped to speak to. But suffice it to say, as far as I know, there's not a whole hell of a lot of parts compatibility on these guns. So why this is not higher on my list, I do think it's actually very fun to shoot. The extreme weight of it basically more than compensates for the recoil of the 45. So even though it's in 45, it's very light recoiling and has a very nice trigger. Now you notice I'm not handling it a whole lot, and the reason why it is not higher on the list, namely, is that it is extremely heavy. I believe these are 13 pounds unloaded. I could be wrong on that number. I maybe 11 pounds. And I'm using my phone to record, so I'm not going to go double check that. I probably should have done that before I started recording, huh? But suffice it to say, for essentially a subgun or a PCC, it is really, really heavy. And definitely the originals were not that heavy. Now, part of that is the extra long barrel. I opted for this one because this one actually has a cut down barrel with a pinned on cuts compensator from the factory. So that helps with the overall length. The originals have a 16-inch barrel plus the cuts compensator, which makes the barrel seem just obnoxiously long, much more even than this one. Part of it too is part of the reason why this is not higher is the accessories and stuff for them are just extremely expensive. Magazines run $70 to $80 a pop. That's on top of this gun already being $1,300 and up. That's $1,300 is around what I'm seeing them for. And I'm going to reach down here real quick and grab this boy. And so you're already looking at, I have the Lyman style sight on there. That was about another $200. The drum, again, about another $200. And for a gun that really almost have to have 3 hands to operate in some instances, especially with holding, this is the little mag lock and mag release here. With the drum, you actually have to have something to basically lock the bolt open, or you pretty much have to have 3 hands. I'm not saying you can't do it, but it's not real fluid for sure. And like I said, expensive accessories, really outdated ergonomics and parts. The whole reason why you would want to have one of these, again, sort of like with the Tech 9, is it's kind of a collector thing again. The first time that I shot one of these actually was not one of these. It was an original Thompson submachine gun. First time I'd ever seen one, or in person, or handled one, and it was full auto. And we had the option at the time to shoot a few different types of full autos and machine guns on the table, and the Thompson was the one I kept coming back to just because it was so fun to shoot. This likewise is also very fun to shoot, even in semi-auto. It's fun to shoot. So, but if you just have to have one and can't afford an original, this is pretty much your only bet. I mean, you can get parts kits every once in a while out there. Misha has one as well that's built on an original parts kit, and definitely much lighter. But you're not really getting an original Thompson for your money. So, if you are just a collector that really feels like they need to have one and wants to shoot, then you're probably going to get one already, and you've got your mindset on it, and I'm not going to change that either way. Or you already have one, and you and me can be guys that have very impractical, very expensive guns together. And this, I'm calling this the Old Ones edition. This is specifically meant to ward off the evils of interdimensional cosmic deities. So there's that too. You remember I mentioned the paint chips thing? Next up at number 4, this is the ATI MP40P Pistol. Now this is actually, I have converted this to a carbine using an extension and the factory folding stock. I mentioned in that video basically the parts that I used to put this together, but this is one of those guns that is again, just like the previous one, because I can't afford to buy an original MP40 or a MP40 parts kit, so this replica is going to have to do me. Now, the nice thing about these is they are in 9mm, unlike a lot of these replicas that are in 22. These are in 9mm. I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but I do apologize for the shaky cam all of a sudden. These guns are just too long to get on the tripod, so that's why I am freehanding it right now. But, you know, this is in the original caliber, so at least you're getting to shoot 9mm. And why this isn't higher on the list is because these are not made of any kind of steel. From what I understand, these are made of, I'm wanting to say Zamac, is what I've heard. So far, this has been 100% reliable for me. I'm not really sure I'd count on it for, you know, necessarily long-term durability. But for a range toy and for having an MP40 look-alike, that's actually in the original caliber. And for the fact that I think I bought this one for about $450 minus the stock, they're actually, I think, a pretty good deal. And again, they've worked fine for me. Now on the stock, there it is deployed. It was very stiff. I had to actually punch it with the palm of my hand. But it is steel, and of course steel adds a lot of weight. So this is a few pounds heavier than the original MP40. But again, we're dealing with replicas here, not originals. So, you know, it is what it is for what the price is. But I like it personally. Like I said, it's been 100% functional for me, and we've had a couple now that we've gotten hands on and shot. And yeah, I think it's a neat thing. I'd like to see more replicas in the original calibers, or at least an approximate caliber, whether it's ATI doing it or HMG or whoever else. But this right now I thought was just a neat thing that came through, and definitely fills a hole in the collection, but is not an original gun. So now this next gun you'll probably recognize immediately. This is the Polish PPS43 C. Now this is the pistol version. This is how they come into the country, as pistols. This is an original IO Inc. import. I believe that right now they're being imported by Pioneer Arms, and they're actually made by Pioneer Arms in Poland. So even though they were once imported by IO, now they're being imported by the IO of today, which is Pioneer Arms Corporation. Now these guns, unlike their AKs, have actually worked pretty well for us. To date, I've had 500 or 600 rounds combined through these and haven't had any failures. And then we've shot multiple ones. I think that they're okay to go. I'm not going to say they're not going to fail at some point, but our experience has been good. And again, I can only tell you what our experience is with a handful of guns. But this is one of the few 7.62x25 PCCs that you can get. So it's kind of a no-brainer if you're a fan of that round, or if you're a fan of Polish-built firearms. Now, in addition to that, I have this 4352. This was built for me by MK Gun Mods. They've done quite a few parts kit builds for us in the past. This one was actually built, again, using an original 4352 parts kit with using basically a PPS43 pistol as the base. But I'm really proud of these guns, and they're a lot of fun to shoot. Again, back when I bought this one, the pistol, they were sub $300. Now they're over $400. But they are very unique and definitely have a lot of historical significance, especially on the 43. So yeah, little neat piece of Polish firearm history for you that you can actually buy. So at number 2, we have a gun, or rather, in this case, a pair of guns that I'm very interested in and that I really, really admire. And they're just a ton of fun to shoot. These are the Z61 Scorpions. These were brought in by CSA and D-Technic. What's interesting about these is they've really endured a pretty long life on the commercial market, relatively speaking, and are relatively popular, which I'm happy about. So CSA has supported them as a result.
this is the 9x18 Makarov version, and behind me there is, behind that one there, I guess I should say, is the original 32 caliber version. Now this is the reason why some people will call the Scorpion that you're probably more familiar with, which is the 9mm Evo 3. We'll call it the Evo 3 because in a lot of people's mind this is the Scorpion, or this is the original Scorpion, and at least there's a few different versions, so it's a little easier to identify. But the Z61 Scorpion, check-made gun, really fun. It doesn't matter if it's the 32 version or the 9x18 Makarov version. A lot of fun to shoot. Part of the support that I mentioned earlier from CSA is this brace adapter that uses the stock, or the stock plate pins in the back that are threaded. Now, normally you can put a stock plate there if you want to SBR. In this case, I have braces on mine, and I've added a folding hinge mechanism to make those a little bit more compact. And then this is the SBA3 brace. And whether using it as a brace or using it not as intended, by shouldering it, it's pretty comfortable and practical either way. In fact, I actually think that even though the braces look pretty crappy personally on there, it doesn't look right for sure, I actually think that they're more practical than the little wire type coat hanger stocks that come with them. I mean, coat hangers is definitely putting it down a little bit. It's more solid than that, but it's still a very small area for your shoulder, and very slim. So of course the brace on there adds a little bit of extra weight, not a ton. These are pretty light, and definitely doubles the width when folded. So they're bulkier, but extremely usable, and makes the gun that's already really fun a hell of a lot more fun to shoot. So whether it's the 32 or the 9mm Makarov that you see here, these are just really well made, really reliable, and extremely fun, like I mentioned. And again, has really decent support through CSA on them as well. So this is my number 2 on the honorable mentions list, and I will move on to number 1. So coming in at number 1 for me is the Wiselite Sterling 9mm. This is a kit gun that was built by Wiselite on an original Mark IV L2A3 Sterling kit. Hope I got that nomenclature right. And this is very famously used as the blaster in Star Wars, the Stormtrooper blaster rifle. And you can definitely see some hints there, but of course they made some changes for the prop. But what really intrigued me or interested me about these was it was one of the first PCCs, 9mm PCCs that I ever shot. And at the time, they could be had for about $450, $500. I think they're pretty much all gone now, which is why they was not on my original list. Plus, I didn't want to have kit guns on that list. I wanted to have, factory obtainable guns. So the trigger is quite good. Like, not heavy at all. It's actually a striker system instead of a hammer system. But it's definitely very good, especially for ostensibly a SMG to semi-auto conversion. So it does have a 16-inch barrel. This has a little barrel shroud on it just to make it look like a suppressor, and has the original folding stock, which folds out very easily. One interesting thing too on these is the magazines actually have roller followers, so these load extremely easy all the way full. Unlike a lot of these, especially Stins, this gun will also use Stin mags that get really, really tough after 15, 20 rounds. I think on the Stins, really, they start even earlier than that. But anyway, so that's my number 1. I really like shooting it. It's really fun, like I've said probably already a million times now at this point in this video. And it's just cool. It's so different than so many other guns out on the market, especially PCCs and stuff, that have really started to swing towards the understandably started to swing towards more on the AR market. But with this sort of nested recoil spring system, it is a direct blowback. The recoil is extremely minimal. Of course, you know, no consideration for optics, no consideration for forward mounts, but it's fine. It's just one of those is what it is guns. But it's really unfortunate that actual modern versions of these, like carbines, aren't being produced today by somebody. And that the Sterling, you know, or I should say the Wiselite ones are pretty much all dried up now. I mean, I'm sure you can find them on the secondhand market, etc., etc. But anyway, so that would be my number one of all of these different random, non-factory, not necessarily 9mm carbines. This one is a 9mm Luger. But if you have any questions, please post them in the comments below. And if you like this type of video, be sure to click like and subscribe to us so you can see more type of stuff whenever we release it. And if you're interested in supporting us so we can get out to the range occasionally, please see the link to our Patreon page. This is Jay, and we will see you again, hopefully soon, next time.